get better mics.
Just get a shotgun mic.
Don't push the mono button.
Yeah, do not push the mono button. Never push the mono button. Hey everybody, welcome to Inside Tabletop. I am here with Chris from Loads of War Games and Hobbies.
What's going on, guys?
And we are here to talk about things inside the tabletop industry. If you've never been to one of these before, this is an ongoing series that happens when I have guests in who are working inside the tabletop industry. And we basically sit down and we grab a legal pad and we pick a bunch of topics that we want to talk about, and then we talk about them. So this is Chris. If you don't know Chris, he and his partner Jay run Loads of War Games and Hobbies, also the Loads of War Games and Hobbies YouTube channel.
New and improved.
New and improved YouTube channel.
We haven't done it for the first almost 10 years of our business.
I know.
We're like distinctively off the internet.
I love how you hated the idea of all this, and I talked you guys into it last summer, and you did your first few.
Yeah.
And now you're like banging out all these awesome clickbaity like industry talks to try and get people.
It's funny. I almost feel like as much as you were pushing us to do it, you were also pushing me away from doing it, because I would come here and watch you do it and see how much effort and work you put into it all the time, every week. And I'm like, oh my God.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. But you guys have such a unique thing where you're almost, and I said clickbaity earlier, but what I mean is you're almost subverting that, because most people who do clickbaity internet discussions about the tabletop industry don't work in the industry. They're consumers. And so again, I don't watch a lot of YouTube content about the tabletop industry because it doesn't mean anything. So much of it is from outside of the sphere of understanding of like what it takes to make a game or sell a game or run a business, that it just bounces off me. Like I can't absorb it. It doesn't come from a trusted source, basically.
Right.
But for you guys, it's subversive because you make these clickbaity titles, but then you have these incredibly reasonable videos.
I know.
Which I find
our
so
favorite
funny.
part. It's like the contrast is extreme.
Yeah, you're like these incredible moderates. And I feel like you're roping open people on the internet to come watch it. And it makes me so happy because you're like, his game, you have it in all caps, like his Games Workshop failed. And then you guys would just be like, hey everybody. And you're just sitting there drinking your fucking morning coffee. Oh man. In this very chill sort of
We get a lot of comments like, that's the most liar title I've ever seen.
Yeah, it makes me so happy. So the fact that you guys are basically like, you're doing like a free candy on the side of the van, but then they get inside, there's just actually candy there.
I think we get away with it mostly because the phone will ring in the background. Yeah, we get this amazing instant context that I think a lot of people try to create with their background in front of the bookshelf and all this stuff. And I'm like, we're just in our shop at the table where we help customers. Yeah. So I think we're kind of lucky with that, right?
Well, I think that you're capturing these real conversations that happen inside businesses about what's going on in the industry. And if you've ever hung out in hobby shops, there's two kinds of conversations. There's the ones that are happening amongst the customers around the painting table or around the gaming table, and there's the ones that are happening behind the counter. Yeah. And those conversations are incredibly different typically. And sometimes they're about each other. And that's a whole other thing. But to hear the behind the counter conversations, I think for a lot of people is really eye-opening, because you're in this interesting middle position between the consumer and the manufacturers, right? So you're literally in two worlds where you are buying it as a customer from the manufacturers and then selling it on to the end user that's going to open the product up and actually do it. So I think you have a really interesting perspective, and you and I have both also worked inside of the manufacturer side.
Well, I think that's a key, really important part is having the context and experience of been on the other side. So there's a little bit of empathy there and understanding what those people are going through, still knowing a lot of them too, right? Obviously. Yeah. Well, I
was going to say is I think that gives us a great segue into today's topic, which is Games Workshop's annual report. And you guys have already done some videos on this, which I thought was
great. We did a video, yeah. Jay, it's Jay's favorite thing.
Is he's looking at numbers?
He loves crunching numbers. He loves the dry, smug humor thing with with that stuff, right? So
well, it's funny because I think there's obviously whenever an annual report comes up for workshop, there's lots of people that'll do the reactions to it and stuff like that. A lot of people will take down line by line. What does this mean? What does that mean? Yeah. And we're not going to do an exhaustive video on it today, but I think what's interesting about talking about their annual report always is, what did they talk about? What didn't they talk about? And how is that reflected in your world and my world, right? My world is obviously now in the marketing and stuff for independent companies outside of that, but I do some marketing with Games Workshop. Obviously, I'm part of their program, right, for receiving reviews and samples and stuff like that. You are, and to more context, both of us worked inside Games Workshop for years. I was there for almost 15 years as a sales director, and you were working as a retail manager for almost 10.
Yeah, close to 10
Close
years.
to 10, before you open your store.
Yeah.
So like there's again, we've all walked in a bunch of different worlds, and so these words kind of mean different things than I think they mean for other people. So what was your top line takeaway besides the fact they had a great year?
Yeah, my biggest first reaction was like, wow, the economy is not great, but they're still doing really well. And I think my first like immediate thing was like, I know a lot of hobby shops aren't doing as well as Games Workshop's doing, which I think is an interesting sort of like starting point to talk about.
For a manufacturer.
Yes.
So ultimately that's what you kind of have to think of them as. They're a factory.
Yeah.
They're making the widgets and then selling them on. And so you as the end user might be having a very different experience because once they've sold it to you, they're done.
Yeah, I think a lot of people's stocks got bigger in the last year. Like people are carrying more things. But they're probably not moving them at the same rate as Games Workshop is. And you know, not to be Mr. Negative Jumpy on guy, but there's also a lot less. It's one of the things we talked about when we were writing some notes down. Is they're a little less supportive than they were about a decade ago in terms of like, you know, and people don't think about when a new edition hits all the stuff that all of a sudden a store can't sell anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
And we're not talking like fashion's changed and like pink shirts aren't cool anymore. We're talking like this product was $35 or $70 and now it's worth $0.
This $55 book is worth $0.
You cannot get $5 for it.
This
right?
$55 book that I paid $27.50 for is now worth $0.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can't sell it. I have to bargain bin it to give it away. So that $27.50 is dead to me.
Yeah.
And there's no way to recuperate that.
Exactly, right? So there are those elements that you're always kind of dealing with. And, you know, you take them in stride because you're like, you know, but it's just different than it used to be. So we're like a little more detached from the sales report than we probably would have been 10 years ago.
Sure.
Like if Games Workshop had a great year 10 years ago, we probably had a pretty similarly great year. But now there's like almost like a little bit of a detachment, I think, from that, right? We drew a little picture of a dump truck backing up to the retailer and then just like kind of dropping off the weekly products. And then people forget that at that point when the dump truck drops the products off, that's when Games Workshop gets their money.
They're paid. They're done.
We have product, but we don't have money yet.
That's right.
Right. So
you have the opportunity to make money, but you don't actually have the money.
Correct. Yet. Right.
Yeah. So sales for them doesn't necessarily reflect back into sales for you.
And as more and more things come out, like they have more things than they've ever had before. That's just more inventory we have to carry as well. Yeah. So that's something that's actually quite interesting is if they just grow the amount of stuff a trade has to carry by 20% in a year, that's a huge number. They might have a huge growth year.
Yep.
Have we sold more kits on our end because of that?
And how does that reflect
maybe
in the year
not
after?
Maybe not,
how
right?
does that trickle down?
Exactly, right? So that's kind of an interesting element to it as well.
There's three big things that I think are worth just front loading before we have our conversation. The first one is they made about 50-ish million pounds in growth this year.
Like growth,
right?
profit,
in actual growth.
Profit growth, yeah.
Profit growth.
Yeah.
30-ish million of that is licensing.
Yes.
Right? So if you look at licensing as free money, because the reason you can't count licensing as being a thing you just make every single year is you have no control over it. Licensing is the free money that people approach you, try and acquire a license, and then it's the portion of the money they make. It's you can solicit it, but it's a mostly uncontrollable thing. So you're having to get more licenses to make more money. So a bunch of the profit growth that they made, because it is, if you look at the bar graph, when you make profit, there's the cost associated with profit, right? The sale of miniatures, there's a lot that goes into that bar that comes off the profit top. So let's say it's a bar that's, you know, that's the bulk of the actual sales, which is roughly 500 million or something like that.
Yeah.
Roughly 500 million last year, 500 million pounds. There's still going to be an associated cost of that. That's going to be a big chunk of that bar. Yeah. Whereas the licensing profit is going to just be the lawyers and deal makers and people that answer the phone that deal with that.
The one guy who has to be like, hello.
That's right. Hello. I'd like
you
a
want
check now,
Space Marines in your game? All right, let me get that contract out to you.
But
it though?
It's also not subject to things like global shipping, pandemics, cost of goods going up, cost of like the plastics going up, cost of fuel going up to get your stuff from point A to point B, all that stuff.
And the only thing they really talk about in the report about that is that like they don't know when they license something if they're going to get money back from it, because it is really tied to revenues.
That's it. Yeah. So it's an interesting.
If a game's a bust, it's like
But it's worth front loading that information that like yes, their profit line went up, but also they made this much licensing. So 50 million, subtract 30 million from that, 20 million. It's interesting how much licensing is becoming a part of the profit line growth, right? The second thing is they were focusing on the 40K year because it's the year that's just finished. So obviously they didn't talk a lot about AOS in this one because that's just happened. That's not relevant to this annual report, right? They're talking about 10th edition launch for the most part. And that went well for them. It seems like they had a good year, and that historically in 40K years, they have good years.
They're basically like every 3 years is like a guaranteed record year. That's what they're basically saying.
Big home run.
Good time to buy stocks if you're going into the 40K year.
The year after this, don't buy any stock or buy some stock. And then in 3 years, that stock's going to be ba-boom.
Yeah, exactly.
Big home run. Yeah. Which is, I mean, that's just them acknowledging things that I think everybody kind of already knows, is that is their biggest portion of consumer pie. And so whenever they cater to that portion of consumer pie, then it goes well.
Yep. But I mean, like, it's worth pointing out, just like I mentioned in the beginning, like, once again, if there's still Leviathans out there on the shelves that retailers haven't sold, that's money Games Workshop has that we don't have yet.
That's a future conversation. I think it's worth having, right? Like, if you can still buy a Leviathan today, they had a really good year selling Leviathans. Did everybody have a really good year selling Leviathans? That's a conversation for a minute from now.
Yeah, exactly.
And the last thing is, and something I noticed, wasn't a lot of talk about Amazon. Wasn't a lot of talk about media and media creation. There wasn't a lot of talk about Warhammer TV.
They only mentioned subscriptions going up.
Yep.
And that's kind of all they talked about with that.
Yep. And the reason I want to bring that up is that doesn't necessarily mean things are bad. It also doesn't necessarily mean things are good. But an annual report, they made a big announcement in December. So 7 months later, which is 6 months of that calendar year for their annual report. There wasn't anything really to report to shareholders to go in the annual report. And I want to be really clear that I don't want to join the legions of shit posters on the internet being like, it means that the deal's doomed.
Right.
That's not what that means. What that means is it's definitely not done. Don't expect anything anytime soon, because they can't start work until the terms are hammered out.
Yeah.
So if there wasn't anything in the annual report about it, that's a big chunk of their licensing money investment that they're doing right now, that they're looking at it as a future. If they can make a TV show, there's so much that will come out of that. There will be t-shirts.
Oh my gosh.
The amount of licensing money that comes out of a successful TV show is bananas. Look at Fallout right now and how much money Bethesda's making off of just random ass Walt Goggins posters probably. And that's what we're talking about times like, Games Workshop's overall mass. They're way bigger than Bethesda's just from a point of view of revenue, right? So like, that's a third point that I think is worth talking about. So let's go back to the beginning then. Let's talk about that pie chart of what did it look like for you at the end? Because I think that temporal thing is important. We were talking about, so it was a great year for 40K for Games Workshop. Was it a great year for 40K in your retail store?
It was okay. Like for a launch year, I would say it was underwhelming.
Okay.
Because we talked about this a bit last summer. We never got the explosion that I was kind of like expecting. I don't know that like launches are having that same impact anymore necessarily.
What do you think the downforce on that is?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I think it's, if I had to pick one thing, I would say it's how many big things come out in a year now.
Yeah,
has really diminished the excitement of like a summer release.
Yeah,
because if they have like a big like $200 to $300 box set every couple of weeks, which they do now. There's just more things that are more exciting for more people in different directions. And I think there's just like less reason to be excited for the one big box that comes out this summer.
Do you think product availability had anything to do with it? Because we had a big talk last year about like, hey, 100%. Here's the Tyranid Codex. There's zero Tyranid items available.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was definitely last summer the number one thing. And I think they would admit
that would have gone through Christmas too, right? Like that's, if we're talking about the first 6 months of that annual report,
it would have plagued them. I think it plagued them all of last year.
Yeah.
And they spent a lot of time in the report talking about how they've spent a lot of money to try to fix this.
Yeah, to get infrastructure right, basically, so they can get back to some kind of like.
And I have to say, it definitely has improved. Like, like just today or this week, like we're looking at like 1 week turnarounds for orders.
Awesome.
The fulfillment rates are closer to 100%. Like it's amazing, right? So, but
we said that last summer too. We were like, this is the kind of thing that like when it becomes a problem, then like guaranteed there's a fix in the works because they don't want to make less money.
No, they don't.
And it's going to be one of those things where if they want to fix it, they're not going to fix it short term. They're going to do something where they invest a whole lot of money to make sure it never happens.
Well, they've automated most of their picking now.
Yeah.
So it's all machines picking now.
Right.
So that's a huge part of it.
Yeah. I think about what the investment in that is and the time to roll that out and the time to get it installed in your warehouse is like, it's the reason why you have to spend 6 months in pain basally to then return to a service guarantee.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you talk to any trade person over the last, about their last year or 18 months with Games Workshop, they'd probably have a lot of, negative or constructive things to say.
Sure, yeah.
But I think, now that you can see the other side of that, you're like, okay, well, yeah.
This is going to be better.
And knowing Games Workshop and having been involved with them for so long, that's one thing they always kind of do really well is you can't blame them for, the pandemic happened and they had a huge boom in their business and the supply stuff all got messed up for a lot of these companies.
For the world.
So yeah, it's like every company was going through this. It wasn't unique to them, but they've done a really good job, I think, of navigating out of it at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. And and hopefully future proofing. Like that's always my hope.
For sure.
And historically that's always been the tact they take where they don't want to solve it once, they want to solve it forever. So if it's been an issue for them, if it's a barrier to them making money, they don't just burn it down. They salt the earth and make sure nothing can ever grow there again. It's going to cause them a problem.
Absolutely.
And they tend to invest money to do
that. This, this wasn't one of our points, but Jay and I pointed this out, which I think is really important. They didn't just spend their profit buying back their own shares, driving up the cost, for all their investors. Yep. They didn't do that. They didn't do the 4GM thing. They actually reinvest into their business. Yeah. And they pay out money to staff and they do a bunch of stuff like that too, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, the staff payout was huge this year. Which was, I saw the
pretty big checks actually.
Big checks, yeah. Decent and top down, everybody gets them.
Yes.
Right? So it's like
the same amount of money too.
Same amount of money. Yeah. That's a big incentive to work there. And so what was point number two? Point number two was that it was the 40K launch. And so it was not including anything happening right now. So we're not gonna talk about AOS today. How has that been, interestingly enough, for you as a new to YouTube YouTuber? How the last year of 40K and talking about 40K and all the changes to 40K and the way it's played and the global events team, like how has that felt? Like how did hearing that in the annual report feel to you on the ground, having been the person that is supposedly experiencing what's being talked about in that report?
It's a good question. It's hard to even say because I'm so in it in my own store, but I try to break free of that by talking to other people.
Yeah.
And then when you hear this general statement about how everything is, you're like, well, I think it's mostly true. So I think I don't have any really strong disagreements about it. But the funny thing, even ignoring 40K for a second, not talking about AOS for a whole year of sales, I think that was a very telling thing. Because we're not going to talk about AOS, but
well, I mean, we're not, sorry.
Let's be real.
They didn't.
They did not have a good year selling AOS, and neither did we.
No, and they're winding an edition down. They tend to not that tends to be even for 40K the year before 40K wasn't selling well because they were just selling these campaign books.
Right.
And then they had the boarding action parties and they were just these weird collections of models. They were grouping models together to try and drive in new releases.
I think they really need to rethink their end of edition plan.
Yeah.
Because it's not working. The books they released, people don't care about. There's no...
I feel like AOS might be doing that because 40K rushed every codex out and then had all these issues with codexes and balance and having to do all these FAQs and stuff like that. I feel like you don't want the last year to still have battle tomes and codexes coming out because it feels like people are getting shortchanged. But I feel like if the free thing you get at the beginning of the edition is good enough, that actually kind of doesn't become a problem. And it does feel like this AOS launch, the indexes are better than the 40K ones were.
Definitely. They're way more developed.
Way more developed. Yeah. Right? With artifacts.
You get way more of a whole experience.
Way more, exactly. I mean, army building. I feel like you get more out of those than you did with the 40K ones. And that might indicate some kind of learning that was the case.
They did this one interesting experiment. They've never, to my knowledge, replicated this again. And I was hoping that this would be the new normal thing. They released the Iron Jaws or Orc Warclans part 2 almost. And it was I think it was last year. And they had 3 or 4 new kits come out for the Iron Jaws. And instead of putting out a brand new book, they just put out this free digital supplement.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what they should be doing in the last year.
Yeah.
Don't Don't sell people something they're going to get like upset about. Give them some value add, and then sell more models, right?
Yep.
Ultimately, that's what you're trying to do anyways. Yep. I don't know that anyone like picked up on that, but I thought it was really well.
I think that would be really well
done.
Instead of doing these campaign books to try and launch these individual model kits, do your first 2 years and get all the codex and battle tomes out, so everybody gets at least one full calendar year of whatever they bought. And in that one full calendar year, revisit the early ones, because they're usually your most popular ones. They're your Space Marines, your Tyranid. You know what I mean? Like they're your like launch box things, and do that kind of thing where you do like a free digital whatever add-on basically that makes that person feel like they're come back up to date, lets you launch a new miniature like a Primarch or some kind of, you know,
and maybe their little end of edition books are actually like, I think there's some cool stuff in there, like the campaigns. That it's a great idea. I just think the execution, if you're paywalling it behind $70 for something that someone wants to, they're like, I'd like to play that, but I know this investment's going to last 4 months. That's something they could release digitally as well for people. And if, like I said, the goal is to sell those new models. Yeah. Right?
And the goal is to sell more model kits. And also the goal is to even out this transition, that we don't have these giant years once every 3 years, and that we have like a more steady growth inside our customer base, and that they feel more consumer confidence in what we're making. Because to me, that's what this relates to. And you're going to do a video later on this about consumer confidence and developing products and how you deliver products to people, which you guys will see in a couple weeks. But for 40K in general, because it seems to be like peaks and valleys, like how can you just through good quality customer interactions keep that being a steady line, not like an ebb and flow where you have to like make up for declining 40K sales with 1 million specialist games, or like that thing you're talking about where they're just paving over their own shit.
And I think you're like, they're stuck in this thing now, especially with this forced sort of like match play kind of lens going through over everything, where I think the way they feel like they have to do that is the typical like release a codex, release a new character, release a new box set, release a new big army box, and that's the only way we can drive sales. That seems to be the way they do it, and they sprinkle that through the 3-year period all the way till the end. They don't have any. I don't think they have any other ideas on how they could maybe rearrange that.
You know? And that's that one big pillar. That's the manufacturing pillar that we're talking about. How do you make that manufacturing pillar consistent, keep growing by hopefully just growing your customer count? The best way and healthiest way for any company to grow their business is just by increasing the number of people that interact with it. And that'll take us to our last point, but like that idea that you can sell the same people more shit, but eventually they're gonna get tired of buying shit. Right? No matter how many cool guns you give it, how many giant missile bots you stick on it, eventually everyone reaches a capacity limit, especially in a tactile hobby like this, where you got to physically interact with all this product before it gives you the satisfaction loop. The gameplay loop isn't complete until you build, paint, play with it all.
Right.
So you don't get the full satisfaction of doing that. So the more you buy, the longer that loop takes to do, versus simply interact with more people, take it to new people, make sure those people have a great first experience and get into that thing and join that ecosystem, and you have a healthier overall sales base, right? It's more resistant to change. It's more resistant to the decline of like, and things like global shipping, and you can make more products for more people versus trying to just dig into the same customer.
Well, and ultimately, you know, we always say this in retail, like what would you rather have, 100 customers that spend $50 a week or 50 customers that spend $100, right? And the answer is always, I'd rather have 100, right? Because there's just more opportunities there. It's more resilient.
Yeah, people leave.
If you lose a person or two, you're not going to be like, oh my gosh, we're really feeling this, right?
That's it.
So I think that's something that they probably are focused on, but doesn't always feel like they're focused on.
Well, we'll talk about that later. Because the last thing that I think that they're doing to do that is they are obviously, and it didn't come up in this annual report, but they're obviously looking to increase their media presence. Right. And an Amazon deal, which was announced in December. So half this annual report's calendar year, they've been under their sort of finalizations of what the contract looks like for them to start production on whatever this ends up being, this 40K thing with Henry Cavill. And it's not weird that there's nothing in the annual report, but if they weren't, it's the kind of thing that would be in the annual report if it was even close to being done. Yeah. Right. If it was even at terms, they wouldn't necessarily mention details, but they would say, we are in contract negotiations with Amazon, and we are very optimistic about the future of the Games Workshop hobby in the media landscape in general, and are excited to grow that. They would just say that to shareholders because they already have 6 months through the year. So not bringing it up doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't mean it's doom and gloom, but if they're announcing it to customers, they're announcing it to shareholders. They're the same people. Shareholders are just customers that invest in something different. They don't invest in the toys, they invest in the growth of the company. So it not really being a big deal in the annual report, when it is a big deal, no matter how you slice it, from the point of view of just making more and bigger slices of that profit growth, right? Because license money is what you're after when you're doing that. You're increasing your media presence. You're trying to sell you want that little kiosk of t-shirts in the middle of the mall to just be dripping with Space Marine shit is what you want. You want some slogan like "There is only war, the grim darkness of the far future" to be the new winter is coming. Like that's what you're shooting for. You want
grandmas to know what that means. You know, that's basically the market saturation on that stuff.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the goal for that.
And ultimately, just to kind of like add on to what you're saying, this is so massive for them, I think.
Sure.
Because this is that opportunity to grow that intellectual property chunk just to almost an unlimited level. Like this is the start of that.
It's generational wealth then. Because even if it only has 10 years of longevity,
exactly,
then it can lie dormant for 10 years and then the nostalgia train kicks in and you bring it to the generation's kids in 10 years. This is how you get a Star Wars. Yeah. If you can get into the media zeitgeist, you can dust this off 10 years on, 10 years off, and Warhammer becomes a thing that people grow up on and then talk about for years.
This must be what they're talking about, right? Because this is their opportunity to do, like we've had discussions about this on your channel before, about them being truly a brand company. Yeah, like, a brand and this is that like first key pillar stone that you can kind of see where you're like, they have to get this right. Yep. And I wonder how much that has to do with it.
I'm sure that has something to do with it. I'm sure that has to be like
the show can't suck.
It can't suck.
It can't suck. It's so important.
And honestly, there's so much precedent with Amazon in particular to have it not suck.
How much does watching that Fallout show give you faith that they could pull this off?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. The problem is going to be who dictates what gets made. Yeah. The big thing that the Amazon show did right in Fallout was it did not base it on any of the existing material. And it crafted a show that was for people who had no idea what Fallout was. 100%. Jay and I went through this a ton where we talked about how the writing in the Fallout TV show is unreasonably good by creating a universe and then parsing it out through 3 different POVs so that if you've never encountered Fallout before, you have a wonderful introduction to it. And I think for 40K, you have to do that. I think taking an existing piece of IP is a mistake, because it is all predetermined upon you having some understanding.
You're absolutely right. I think they 100% have to write an original story.
They have to write an original story. One, I think that actually creates more value for us as existing people who understand what the brand is, because it's new for us too. And we're not just going like I get it. Yeah, okay, come on, get to the horse here. So
that's king.
Dude, the guys are in trilogy already. Just do it. Just make something from scratch. And what my guess would be is if they're doing that, that's a much more complicated agreement.
Yes.
So if I was a betting man, I bet as to why it's not in the annual report, I would say that's probably why. It's because they have to have they have to have approval terms that are very well defined as to what Amazon can and can't do when they go to make something new.
Which is something they haven't been doing on a lot of their other projects, because they know if someone makes an app game for them, it's not super important if it's good, in the grand scheme of things.
No. And most of them aren't. There's only one good one. It's called Combat Cards. It's based on a game from when I was a kid, and it's my treadmill game. It's the game I sit and play on my treadmill. Like when I'm.
Does the game sell you packs though? That's the important.
You don't have to.
Oh,
you can grind the whole fucking thing. You can just grind the whole thing. But you can have clans and PvP, so I can play with my kids.
Oh, that's cute.
And it's easy enough the kids will play with me. It's awesome. One good game.
There we go.
All the rest are trash. Join my clan, GMG Ash Barker. but
that I never expected.
Yeah. Give me some of that sweet licensing money. Get on Combat Cards. I'm here. I'm ready for it. I'll make shorts. But that is exactly right. Is that this is a once in a lifetime swing. Yeah. And they're probably trying to get it exactly right before they say anything, yay or nay.
Right.
So I doubt it has anything to do with things going well or not going well, and just that it takes a long time to make sure this gets done right. Yep. Because if there's one thing Workshop's super well known for, it's being controlling about their intellectual property, but also they're dealing with someone much bigger than them that is going to have their own ideas to what this looks like and can come to the table and say, we made it work for the boys. We made it work for Invincible. We made it work for Fallout just recently, which is
which is the most probably closest you're going to get to a
dystopian satire.
Yeah. Exactly.
Based on a gameplay loop. You need a way to introduce that to people and not have it just be like, wait, but who are the good guys? The space Nazis? Oh, fuck. Okay.
Oh, no.
What? Like the super fascist stormtroopers are the good guys in this one? Like, how do you present that to people and have it not be incredibly objectionable?
Exactly, right? Yeah. Like, and the test is always like, it's really simple, right? Is like, are women going to watch the show?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's half the market.
I know that sounds like overly reductive and simplistic, but I honestly think it's that simple.
Yep. Yeah. And 40K being based on a Bale Power fantasy of Space Marines is not necessarily the greatest thing from Amazon's point of view of how do you get their version of Q ratings and audience membership, right? Like you need to have something compelling for all parts of audience. You want it to be a broad success. And they're shooting for it to be a broad success because they're looking at that generational stuff. So I'm not surprised it's not in there. But a lot of people are talking about what is in there. A lot of people aren't talking about what isn't in there. And that's we're talking about 30 million pounds-ish.
But Ash, you didn't mention Old World.
Oh, sorry. You mean other games. Sorry. There is a line about how great Old World's doing with absolutely no specific details.
But there's great things.
Great things are coming in the world. Yes, great things to come.
We hope there's great things to come.
The great thing to come is that they will continue to pay to warehouse those molds. And those molds will stay profitable. And that is the greatest thing anyone can possibly hope for.
It's a huge part of their margin for that game. They're killing it.
How much are you making off that game?
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's not the pillar some people want it to be, but it can't.
What can be at this point?
No, exactly.
40K can't be.
Yeah.
40K is a pillar once every 3 years. And then it makes enough money that it can slowly decline until it's irrelevant and then comes back into being the pillar again. Right? Like it all comes in ebbs and waves at this point. And they have to make up that third lean year with things like the Old World, which I think is perfect.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? Like they made up if you want my opinion of what that means in that annual report, the Old World made up for declining AOS sales in Q2 or Q4 of 2023, 2024. That's what the Old World did. They wound down their AOS sales to almost nil before the launch because that's what they do because they're going to repackage everything. So they're strangling product. They're not selling books. They're not printing books, not printing stuff. And they made up that money by selling other games. And in this case, that was the Old World. Good job. That's what they wanted to do. Yeah. They made that money.
And they did a good job.
And they got growth.
Yeah.
They made that nut. That's it. Like it's a pile. The problem is I can't turn off the idea that I look at it all as one pile of money. What the button pushes to shit out.
The guy running the report looks at it that way too.
Of course he does.
Because he's just like, we made this much and we're so happy about it.
I pushed this button, this came out of the factory, and it made this much money. Yeah. That's literally what it boils down to. And the problem is that as a consumer, we have an emotional investment and want to be on the winning team of what made money. And that's not how an annual report works. The plastic that those miniatures are made of doesn't give a shit if it makes square-based dwarves or it makes Space Marine claw dreadnoughts. It doesn't give a fuck about Brutalis dreadnoughts versus New Dwarf Lords.
Well, and I'll,
but the spreadsheet
already well over time on this video.
Yeah, sorry.
But I will add one thing that no one's going to hear because nobody listens for this long.
Yeah.
Is they did not mention gaming.
No.
Once in the entire report.
Or events.
Not a single word about that whatsoever.
It's very interesting.
Right? For all the talking Warhammer community does.
You mean MetaWatch didn't make any profit this year? How profitable was MetaWatch? How many dollars did MetaWatch make
at the end of the day?
What's that pillar?
It's just
the pillar from
they don't care why you're buying the models. They don't care.
Show me a MetaWatch graph. The plastic, they don't care why you buy it.
They don't care why you buy it.
They have other people to tell them which button we should push this year.
Exactly.
They care how much plastic went out of the warehouse, how much wood pulp and fiber went out of the warehouse and made how much money.
Yeah.
The how is irrelevant, right? The how is about trying to predict the future, not the past. The past is fine. They want to know what's going to do it again in the future.
100%.
Because that's the goal. The goal of being in charge of one of these companies is trying to read the crystal ball and see what's going to happen in the future and predict that.
And luckily for them, they have their own IP. Like they have so many levers they can pull.
They're so in control of it all.
They're so in control of it all.
They're so in control of it all. And they're in a position now where it's transcended being just one thing. And you see other companies trying to imitate that right now. You got Corvus Belli doing a web series, right? Making comic books, trying to push themselves into that junior position, that junior company, like doing multi-branding, multi-level, like brand stuff. You've had Battletech doing it for years. Not just Catalyst is just the tabletop arm of that under license, right? But like Tops makes money from the MechWarrior video games. Tops makes money from all of these things. And it's easy to forget that when we say Battletech, we mean Tops. We don't actually mean Catalyst Game Labs. Catalyst Game Labs is a license. They make licensing money to Tops. Tops is just they've transcended completely to brand management because they own the brand and everything's licensing money for them. They make nothing themselves.
And the scary thing is, if you don't do that stuff, if you don't build those interesting worlds and create those moments for people, 20 years goes by, and I'll use War Machine as and I'm not hating on War Machine here, okay? Enough time has passed with War Machine from when it came out that there should be nostalgia for it.
Sure.
Right? If they had done the right things from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So who's nostalgic for War Machine right now?
They'll sign off in the comments.
Are they?
They're going to show up.
They're going to fire off, dude.
They're going to fire off just to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
I hope so, man.
Welcome to War Machine.
Because I said, I'm not a hater. I'm actually rooting for them.
I am too.
Because I love Steve Ford James. And this is people I was like, you're so critical of this game. I'm like, I'm rooting for them. I want them to do well. Right? Like that's where my criticisms come from.
I just want them to make D&D 5e modules. That's all I want.
They're killing
me
it
the War Machine ones. Just make me War Machine ones.
War Machine ones?
I want War Machine 5e modules. I want Steam adventures of Jack in the wars. I don't know.
You don't even know what you want.
I don't know anymore. Yeah, I don't want. There's so much out there. I'm so tired. All right, so that is our discussion of GW's annual report. So thanks for.
Was it?
It was, yeah.
Wow, we talked about a lot of things.
We did. We talked about a lot of things, but that's because that annual report basically boiled down to those three.
We gave a lot of value for 30 minutes there. I'm just saying.
I think we did too. Yeah. And if you want more of that, you should check out Chris's YouTube channel, where this is all they do. I do other things besides talk about
other more useful things.
I will play games and try to build models and do stuff like that. But Chris, on the other hand, he loves talking.
Loves to gab, just gab.
Love it. So check out Lords of War Games Hobbies YouTube channel or Patreon, where you get even more additional value. They let you see their shirtless gym pics and stuff behind the Patreon. I hear they give you a little
very
skin.
skanky.
A little skin. Yeah, they wear their slutty gym shorts, not the
t-shirt
shorts. That's it. Yeah. So you can catch them over there, and of course you can catch more of the Inside Tabletop as a podcast. If you don't want to watch us do this, you can listen to us do this on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Guerrilla Miniature. Wait, patreon.com/Guerrilla Miniature Games. Yeah,
it is totally.
That is the one. That's the one. Yeah. That's the one.
And you should check out Ash's Monday chats, because those are the best.
Yes, and you also get additional Q&A stuff with me where you can ask me questions about this stuff. Yeah. And I do occasionally have guests as well, where if Chris comes in on a Monday, or Travis is here on a Monday, or someone's here on a Monday, then we do these live, and we get to actually you get to have the curtains pulled.
Those are extra silly, yeah.
They are extra stupid, yeah. Especially if they're late at night, if it's hot in here and it's like GMG After Dark, those are a whole lot. It gets weird.
The sweaty edition.
That's it, yeah. In the summertime especially. All right, bye everybody.